From the News Channel 5 Network, this is SportsLine.
Hey there, SportsLine on your television. Steve Lavin here with you. Glad you are here with us on this Tuesday night here on News Channel 5 Plus. We have a huge football show to talk about with you tonight, and you'll have the opportunity to chime in on the phone lines if you want. 737-7767 is the number. Derek Mason yesterday at SEC Media Days. We'll hear from him. Butch Jones today at SEC Media Days. We'll hear from the coach of the Vols as well. Also, Kermit Davis on Middle Tennessee, getting set for the ESPY Awards tomorrow night out in Los Angeles. Of course, the Blue Raiders up for biggest upset in the ESPYs for their victory over Michigan State, the stunning 15-2 upset back in the NCAA tournament. They busted everybody's bracket back then. They're hoping to bring home hardware tomorrow night in Los Angeles. Some pretty stiff competition, though. Holly Holmes win in the ring over Ronda Rousey, and Roberta Vinci's upset of Serena Williams at the U.S. Open are the other contenders there. I think it's probably either home or Middle Tennessee, if you ask me, but we'll see. We'll see what happens tomorrow night. Regardless, a cool opportunity for the Blue Raiders, who are going to be on really the worldwide stage tomorrow night, because those are the Grammys or the CMAs or whatever major award show you want to talk about for sports. That's what the ESPYs are, and tomorrow night, on a night with the Major League Baseball All-Star Game tonight, really not much on the sports calendar tomorrow. One of the slowest days of the year. You bring all those athletes together, and one of the focuses tomorrow night will be that biggest upset category, and Middle Tennessee is going to be front and center, even if they don't win. And that type of recruiting pitch and story is something Kermit Davis and people down in the borough will be able to sell for quite some time. They will be very much front and center tomorrow night, and changes the perception of that program now that they've been to the NCAA tournament a couple times in the last few years, and now they've won in the NCAA tournament, beating Michigan State just a few months ago to move on to the second round of the NCAA tournament. So we'll get to all those things tonight. I think one of my impressions, though, of Tennessee today from SEC Media Days, and I think this is important, is there's a lot of expectations on the Vols this year, and rightfully so. They are the most talented team in the SEC East. Couple things that I look at as I try to evaluate them from a team that went 9-4 last year and was great down the stretch, blew Northwestern out in the Outback Bowl game. I think for Tennessee to continue that momentum and get to where people want them to be this year, Josh Dobbs has to be a superstar. He's going to put up big numbers regardless. He amassed 27 touchdowns between throwing and running last year. But to me, he's the X factor for them. And that's maybe weird to say that about a quarterback. But Tennessee's going to be able to run the football. That duo of Jalen Hurd and Alvin Kamara, those guys are going to run down just about everybody's throat. And if you look at that defense, I think they're going to be stout. I think Bob Shoop comes in. You got some talented guys. Derek Barnett on the front row. Jalen Reeves-Maben anchors the linebackers, and Cameron Sutton's back in the secondary. You have big-time future NFL players that are stars on all of those levels. You've got a bunch of experience on that side of the ball, and now a dynamic play caller on defense as well. I think the defense is going to be stout. As I said, they're going to run the ball well. I think special teams, they're in pretty good shape. So to me, the real question is, can they make plays down the field? Can they stretch you with Dobbs' passing arm and have receivers to make those plays? To this point, Dobbs has essentially been a running quarterback that has made a couple plays as a passer. He's got to graduate into being a real threat as a thrower this year. And if he can do that, then all of a sudden I think Tennessee goes from being probably the best team in the SEC East to a contender maybe for the national championship. They're talented enough to play with anybody out there. But when you look at what sets them apart maybe from some of the big teams out there, when you look at Clemson, they've got Deshaun Watson, maybe the best player in the country. You look at an Oklahoma, they've got a Baker Mayfield. I think for Tennessee to be in that conversation with the top teams. You know, Ohio State in that mix. You got J.T. Barrett back for them. When you're trying to get to that level, you need somebody to step up. You need somebody to lead you to that spot. And I think that's what Josh Dobbs has to be able to do for Tennessee this year for them to take that next step. And the other part of that is they've got to be able to finish. That's partly going to be on his shoulders, but that's a team-wide thing because last year when you look at their 4 losses, the loss to Oklahoma, the loss to Florida and Gainesville, the loss to Arkansas, and then that loss at Alabama, those 4 losses came by a combined 17 points last year. So close to what that season could have been differently. And this season for Tennessee to be a championship team, to hang a banner and do what they expect to do, they've got to win those close games. They've got to be able to figure out how to pull them out of the fire. And last year they couldn't do that. And sometimes you see that when a team is building itself, a program is building itself. What happens is oftentimes it takes a year, maybe 2, to get competitive, to just be in every game against the best teams in your league or in the country. Then you're in that position, you got to learn how to win. And once you learn how to win, that's when you can really take off. And I think what you saw last year is you saw a Tennessee team that could play with anybody. They had the talent to match up with anybody in the country. But when it came time to win, they didn't always make the plays. And we saw that with several of those collapses last year. I mean, Oklahoma, you're up 17-0 on a team that gets to the semifinals, that gets to the college football playoff last year. But Baker Mayfield willed Oklahoma back in that game, and then they win it in double overtime. The Florida game, that's a 13-point game, 7 minutes to go, something like that. Tennessee couldn't get the stop. And then when they come back after the miraculous 4th down touchdown play by Florida that gave the Gators the lead, Tennessee drives down the field to give them a field goal opportunity, and they just miss. They just couldn't make the plays. The Arkansas game, it's a 14-0 game, and they lose. The Alabama game, I mean, this is a team that won the national championship last year. You're on the road in Tuscaloosa, and Tennessee led that game in the 4th quarter. They lost 19-14 to the national champs. They were close last year, and they have a bunch of those pieces back. All the key ones really are back. There's experience in every position, but Josh Dobbs has to step up. He has to be an all-SEC type of quarterback for this team this year. And when they get into the 4th quarter, and they're going to, the SEC is tough. It is a grind week in and week out, and this schedule is unforgiving. I mean, the first 7 opponents won a combined 70 games last year. Tennessee's going to have to earn it up front on this schedule. They're going to have to buck the trend and figure out how to beat Florida for the first time in forever. They're going to have to figure out how to play with an Alabama team and try to end that streak against the Crimson Tide. There's other games on here. Going to Georgia. That's going to be a difficult game for this team, even with the new coach and Kirby Smart down there in Athens. They're going to get tested. Heck, Virginia Tech in the Battle of Bristol could be a test for Tennessee. They're going to have games where they're going to have to win a game in the 4th quarter. And where is this team's mindset with that? Because last year in those close games, especially early on, they weren't at their best. They weren't able to make those plays and figure it out. So can they do that this year? That'll be the big question for Tennessee. 737-7767 is the number tonight. Let's go to Mike. Mike, good evening. You're first up here on SportsLine.
Hey, my friend, I got a question to ask. Do you think that in time that they'll ever play the national championship Sugar Bowl in Medium Stadium? And, hey, man, I just want to tell you I appreciate everything you're doing for the sports on Channel 5, and you have a great day.
Thanks, Mike. We appreciate that call and the thoughts. The Sugar Bowl is never leaving New Orleans. I mean, that's just not happening. The Sugar Bowl will always be in New Orleans. That's just a fixture there. It is married to the Mercedes-Benz Superdome and will continue to be. The national championship game is now up for bid. The college football playoff is up for bid to you know, the new stadiums out there, the cities that want to put the money behind it, and we will continue to see it move around. We've gone from Dallas a couple years ago and Jerry World out to Phoenix. Those have been great sites for this game. Atlanta's in the pipeline coming up. I think we'll see Houston. Tampa is this year, I believe. I would guess the Rose Bowl at some point will get in on the action. So there will be lots of opportunities for places to host it. I don't think you're ever going to see it in Neyland Stadium because I think they're going to keep it out of home teams' stadiums. You know, it's not going to go to Bryant-Denny Stadium. It's not going to go to the Swamp. It's not going to go to the Horseshoe in Columbus or Autzen Stadium in Oregon. They're going to put it in these pro stadiums with the luxury boxes and the renovations and all that because that's where they can get the most money. And you put it in the bigger cities, in those types of stadiums, that's where they can get the most money. And you also don't want a national championship game, I don't think. This certainly hasn't been the way of college football. You don't want the national championship game on somebody's home field. When you get to the title game and it's 1 versus 2 or 1 versus 3 or whatever the final rankings come out to be, you want it on an even playing field. You want it on a neutral site and see who truly is the best team there. And that's what we've seen the last couple of years. And certainly this past season in Glendale was a terrific game between Alabama and Clemson. And you saw that. It went back and forth, and that stadium was rocking the whole night. And that's the ideal for the college football playoff. Let's go to Brian. Brian, good evening. You're next up here on SportsLine.
I think these guys going to college and playing football, because only 1 in 100 are going to play in the pros. They should look at being a manager of State Farm Insurance or Farmers Insurance or something like that. You know, I think they should look at really doing something with their life. I mean, that's cool being a pro football player, but I think that they should really think about, doing something like regular day life.
You don't think a lot of these guys are doing that?
No. I think they got their eyes in the mirror and the sky and the prize and stuff. And I don't think they're grounded enough. I'm sorry. That's the way I feel.
All right. Well, Brian, I appreciate that. I can tell you after being around a lot of these guys, I mean, Josh Dobbs, who we were just talking about, the Tennessee quarterback, he's an aerospace engineering major. That's a guy who's got some priorities that aren't just on the football field. He is a bright kid that is doing things in the classroom as well. And while you're certainly right, there are a lot of guys who go to college to play football or basketball or baseball or whatever the sport who are thinking of other things athletically to pursue. They're trying to get to the next level. And look, that's within their rights. That's what they want to do. And college is supposed to prepare you to have a career and make money, right? And if you can go to college and end up in the NFL and make a bunch of money, didn't college do its job for you? So I'm never going to fault these guys for following a dream and trying to get to that place, because I think that is admirable to follow your dream and go after it and work for it. But I also do think it's important to have that center on academics and be focused on that while you're on campus as well. And I think for the most part, these schools do a really good job of keeping these guys grounded with that. They've got to go to class. They're monitored for that. They've got to go to study halls. They're monitored for that. They've got tutors. They've got all the extra help that you can get to try to get them in the best place academically possible, because as that NCAA commercial says, there's 300,000 student athletes, and most of us will go pro in something other than sports. That's the case. And most of the athletes that you'll find on campus, certainly in my dealings, understand that even if they're lucky enough to get to a professional league, that only lasts so long. And what do you do with the rest of your life? You better figure out how to take advantage of what you have right now while you're on campus and set yourself up for that. I think most athletes do that. There certainly are the exceptions, but I think most understand the game. Let's go to David. David, good evening.
Hey, Steve.
How you doing?
Pretty good. I got a quick comment, might I say.
Okay.
And I got a prediction for next year. I predict that the reigning champions, Alabama State, is going back. UT, I just don't think they're going to catch up this year. I don't think it's going to happen. And lastly, roll tide.
So you think Alabama's going back to back? I think that was a yes as he hangs up on this. It'll be interesting. I mean, Alabama obviously is on the pedestal right now in college football because of all the titles under Nick Saban. This is a dynasty at this point for this program, and they got it done last year without, frankly, identifying a quarterback until later on in the season. And that's something that when you talk about Tennessee, they know it's Joshua Dobbs. They know he's their quarterback. But can he give them that championship-level play? That's what Alabama was searching for a lot of the season last year. And then all of a sudden, when they had to, Jake Coker was the guy. And he got it done for Alabama, and they get another ring for Nick Saban and, you know, the elephant and all those fans down there in Alabama. So I think Alabama's in that mix again, but it's awfully tough to repeat. And you'll hear Saban say that a lot this year, partially because it's true and partially because I think he wants to deflect some of that pressure off of his team. But it's difficult to repeat, to go through all that. And remember, they played 15 games last year. Go through the SEC championship, into the playoff, have to win 2 games there. That's 15 games. You're into mid-January. No winter break. You're right back to school after that. That's a long season for college football. And then when you come back the next year, are you ready to do it again? We'll see. Alabama's done it before, so it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility. And they will be one of the favorites. But can they do it again? We'll find out. Much more to get to on the program tonight. More from SEC Media Days. We'll hear from Derek Mason, Butch Jones, Kermit Davis on the ESPYs as well. And more of your phone calls. 737-7767 is the number. Stay tuned. SportsLine is back right after this.